Light the beam, because it's time for Nerdy for 30, the Summer of X-Men, the podcast where we talk about X-Men movies for 30-ish minutes. My name, of course, is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, the People's Champ, Tim Keck.
Yeah, buddy. Gonna turn that AC off.
We just talked about being on your game, and Tim delivered by shutting off the AC at the beginning of this podcast recording. That's a pro move right there. And you know,
it's the summer of X-Men. It's the summer of ACs and the backgrounds of podcasts. I'm so pumped for this. I'm red hot for Deadpool, Kevin. Red hot. I need that AC to cool me off so I can make it through the pod. So I can make it through the intro. God. Let's turn it back on.
You know what else is red hot? Is your peaks in this audio file. And you know who else is extremely familiar with audio files? You may know him as the co-founder of Many-Sided Media. You may know him as a prolific, acclaimed game designer. It's Elliot Davis.
Hello.
Yeah.
My AC is also off, so I'm ready to marinate in these X-Men summer juices.
Yes.
That makes three of us. It's a sweaty one today.
It's a sweaty one. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here. So let's dig right into it. Elliot, what's your one sentence take on Deadpool?
I thought a lot about this after you told me this was the question. I think my one sentence take is, I wish I was still delighted by fourth wall breaks.
Wow. Yeah, I dig it.
That's good.
I dig it. Tim, what do you got? You got something similar?
Kind of. I mean, this movie came out in 2016, and rewatching it reminded me how this was a much needed, self-aware, R-rated, irreverent superhero movie at a time when we needed it. I mean, we were waiting for the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie when this came out. You know, like we were so deep in the superhero thing. Everyone had inside jokes about it. It was all consuming in the culture. And to get something like this, I thought it was really fun to have someone kind of convey the thoughts that we've had about these superhero movies and comment on it. And I remember just having a blast watching it. And I think it holds up. I had a good time.
It's a long sentence.
You know, that is hell of a run-on sentence.
The sentence is like just kind of keeps going. What about you, Kevin? One sentence only.
I think context is the important thing to remember here. I'm kind of in the similar vein.
That's a weird sentence, but
mine is Blade walked, Deadpool skipped, everything after it ran. I feel like this was a necessary return to R-rated superhero movies, and it was a foot in the door that gave us things like The Boys later on.
Totally.
But this really does, when you're going through and watching this movie, it really does feel like a proof of concept. It's so weird because I associate the Deadpool franchise with this extreme confidence in exactly what it's doing with the fourth wall breaking and its very specific sense of humor. And this does not feel as confident. So many of the jokes in this movie feel like they're played to an audience where they're not sure if the audience is going to be on board or not. So
that's so accurate. I was actually really surprised by how aware I was of the difference in budget between this first movie, having now seen the second movie in hindsight. It's like when you think about, there were so many things I was thinking about Deadpool 2 when I was watching this, and I'm like, they must have made this for like barely any money. Like there's like 6 people in the cast total, like 3 locations. Like it's great. They make it work, but I was really amazed by how small a movie it was relative to my memory, because I remember it being so big to me when it came out.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of does. It reminds me of some of those earlier X-Men movies, some of those earlier Marvel movies like Blade in the beginning. Yeah. And I guess the X-Men movies too, because when we did the rewatch for the first X-Men movie, prior to Wolverine showing up, the quote unquote like roster of the X-Men is 4 people in that movie.
Right. Man, I love that you brought up Blade, though. That is also Blade 3, one of Ryan Reynolds' best roles.
Oh,
so
God. Good. We got to do the Blade movies eventually. I ride for them so hard.
Yeah,
it's up there. I love Blade. Blade was awesome. Blade The charm of Blade, though, is that it takes itself so seriously. I think that Wesley Snipes is so serious about it, and it just makes it that much more absurd and grounded. And so to have like an R-rated violence with someone who's like, yeah, I get it. You know, I'm in a superhero movie. I remember at the time thinking it was super cool and like it was exciting and fun and it felt different. And yeah, you're right. Now, of course, it's The Boys and everything else where it seems like you can't make a superhero movie without commenting on it somehow. And I think part of that is just because of Deadpool.
Definitely. What they did about this one that was so amazing, too, that acted, I think, is kind of a parachute for them, is that a lot of the comedy they have is rolled into the physical comedy of Deadpool because he can regenerate. So you get so many slapstick moments in this. To me, my standout part, I'll do my thief right now. It's the scene where Deadpool keeps trying to attack Colossus on the bridge and is shattering every single bone. Like, you just can't do that. The only character that could do that with prior to this movie is Wolverine, and it's so far from the tone. And it's such a cool way to poke at the source material, but also still live in world.
Absolutely. It's like,
that's a good one.
I love that. I love the idea that you said of like it skipped so all these other things can run. And like it's the similar to the idea of like a violent superhero being so novel at the time. But now on the other side of watching like The Boys and Invincible, it's like, oh, I'm not getting that same like little like excitement in my stomach of like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that in a superhero movie. It's like also with like the fourth wall break, I feel like at like in a my post Fleabag watching brain, I'm like, there's not a better fourth wall break than Fleabag. Like, I just like, it just ruined other fourth wall breaks for me, unfortunately. Even though Ryan Reynolds, I do think, is a master at it, like in this role. But
yeah, it is awesome. I mean, like, God, do we get? I'm trying to think now. Like, I do think that Fleabag would probably have still worked with audiences if Deadpool hadn't existed. I don't know that Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
I'm curious if Phoebe Waller-Bridge like read the comics or something. That'd be a funny connection.
It'd be amazing. It'd be great. And like, or like, I doubt this happened, but if she had seen Deadpool and was like, oh, great, now I can do this. I think she
Fleabag was like a stage show.
I think the show might have proceeded.
I think that kind of fourth wall break is a lot more accepted in theater. I think that's that's a mechanic that people use in theater all the time. I think at one point it was like a one woman show too. So like, so people turn to the audience and give a monologue all the time. That's every song and every musical is them just like facing the audience and just saying what's happening, you know, in a sing song. So it's cool. I didn't even think that it was that much fourth wall breaking where it's like him looking directly at us, the viewer. I for whatever reason, rewatching it, I thought that happened way more than I think it actually did. Am I going crazy with that, or did I just kind of miss some? Because I thought it was constant.
I think it's a lot of meta. I think it's in general a lot of meta humor, but not so much other than like narration, which like narration I don't give quite the same fourth wall weight as like look at the camera, but like. I think it's the narration in my memory that made it seem like more because like that whole first act is like narration over top. But the meta humor is pretty throughout. And also, I think this was, again, my memory being warped by Deadpool 2, where I was with you, where I thought like there was more because I think they do even more meta humor in Deadpool 2 when they get into the like time travel stuff and all that, which I love Deadpool 2 as well.
It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, though, looking back, because since this one is so much more tempered, I'm seeing moments in this first movie and I'm thinking if they had done this now, or if this had been a scene in Deadpool 2, I think they would have approached it totally differently. I'm stunned that they didn't do a riff on the Bonesaw Spider-Man scene with Deadpool's origin when he's in like the homemade costume. I was like,
oh, wait, what's that? I'm not familiar.
Oh, so you know the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire? He's like the human spider and he does the wrestling scene and he's in the cage with Macho Man Randy Savage and he's playing a wrestler named Bonesaw. And just the whole like, I got you for 3 minutes. And like, what are you doing?
You ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. I was like, when the origin stuff started happening or like the early costume stuff started happening in this movie, for a split second, I was like, wait a minute, do they do a Bonesaw riff? Do they do like an early Spider-Man riff? And they didn't, but like it feels so in the wheelhouse that I feel like that is the kind of thing they would try to tackle now.
Is the white costume like a nod to that at all? I haven't seen the Bonesaw bit, but
I don't think so specifically. It's just, it's one of the first things I can think of where, you know, like a major superhero movie showed the superhero making the costume themselves. So like the early Toby costume is just like a sweatshirt that he spray painted on. And
right.
Definitely had some similar energy.
Oh, I'm remembering the scene now. I have seen it. I've seen those Spider-Man movies so many times. I just was not placing the moment. I was like, those were like such big movies for me as a kid. I'm like, why can't I remember Randy Savage in it? Got it.
Yeah.
We're here.
Nuts.
We made it.
Also, go back, rewatch it now. The woman that like takes Tobey Maguire's ticket to join the fight, Octavia Spencer. Insane.
Whoa.
It's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
That's crazy.
It'll blow your mind.
There's some weird ones in those movies.
Yeah.
There's like Bones is in it. I feel like there's other cameos.
Hal Sparks makes
Bones
an
is there.
appearance in Spider-Man 2. Oh, it's real fun.
I think
Sam Raimi Spider-Man hold up. They hold up.
one of the things that I think is impressive with Deadpool on the rewatch too is, you know, he gave a thief. I think there's like really good comedy in this. Like
Really
this is
good comedy.
This is a really good comedy, and like him punching Colossus is like a top tier bit. That's so good.
Yeah.
I loved it. My favorite my favorite My Thief was like at the end of the movie, Colossus gives him a monologue about how 4 or 5 moments, there's only 3 or 4 or 5 moments where you get to decide to be a hero, and then Deadpool just shoots him. And
That is
it's
same.
so good. I remember it crushing in the theater, and the way, I don't know who's in the suit, if it's Ryan Reynolds in the suit the whole time, but the way he looks from Colossus and just looks at the guy, like his head movements are so good. And it just really sells that he's like taking it in. And then, you know, just a great bit. Just so many good comedy bits in this.
That is also
and
my
the movement
thief.
of Deadpool is top tier.
Yeah. That is also my biggest thief is that subverting the monologue with just shooting the guy in the face. I still that was, of all the jokes that like I knew were coming and like got half the chuckle that I would have gotten when I first, or like half the laugh I would have gotten when I first watched it, that still hit on the rewatch. Even though I've seen this movie multiple times, rewatching it today, I still laughed out loud at it. I was like, that is so fucking good. The thing with the comedy I was kind of blown away by is like, despite you know, TJ Miller and everything being in here, there wasn't anything where I was like, ooh. Like I expected to have like some like, ooh, that didn't age super well, but they kept it like pretty tame as far as like being like irreverent, but not. There wasn't anything that unless I'm missing something, where they were like made a joke where I was like, oh, that you wouldn't write that joke in 2024.
Yeah. So that's something I wanted to bring up on this in general, is that I feel like the Deadpool comics, and Elliot, I know that you read some Deadpool comics growing up, they exist in this zone of humor that is often, you know, like kind of like random core, where part of the appeal is saying the most random thing you possibly can. But then to a certain extent, they also exist in that world of like hyperbolic violence or like hyperbolic awful. So like,
yeah,
something, if there's going to be a bomb, it's got to be a bomb that's a baby is like cuddling it inside of a thing. It's like supposed to be as extreme and extravagant as possible. That's part of the humor, is how outlandish it is. It's like kind of in the like Family Guy world to a certain extent. One thing that I think is brilliant about the movie specifically is that I think it's that thing where it's like, if there's a type of cuisine that you don't necessarily love, but a really great chef makes it, and it's the absolute top tier of that kind of cuisine, you're probably going to like it anyway, because there's probably going to be something about that quality. And for me, that's like the Deadpool movie versus Deadpool comics, where like the Deadpool comics I know are like a very specific flavor that like a lot of people online love. And like, I certainly loved when I was younger. But like now I feel like it doesn't appeal to me as much because I've seen so much of it. But then when like Ryan Reynolds makes these movies and the team that he works with on these movies, it is the absolute top tier of that brand of humor.
And like you're an improv guy. I feel like it's so much like it plays like bits, you know, like when in like some of the best like one-liners and stuff, like there's just great bits throughout this movie that it feels like you are like in on, like you came up with it with a friend and wouldn't let it go. Like maximum effort shouldn't be a funny line, but it is. But it's like it's a great kind of throughout bit for Deadpool. I love it as a line.
Yeah.
It's a great recurring bit.
Yeah.
And it actually has meaning throughout it. He says it seriously when he's actually hyping himself up, and then he says it sarcastically when he's doing bits. And it's funny how the same line just carries different weight depending where you are in the movie.
Absolutely.
I think a big part of this too is like the star power of Ryan Reynolds. Like Ryan Reynolds was famous when this came out, which I don't know if it's not necessarily like Chris Evans was a household name before Captain America. You know, he was like the guy from Not Another Teen Movie who had a banana in his butt. Right. And then Captain America. Marvel at that time is like making stars. You know, they're taking the guy from Parks and Rec and making him a superhero. Like they're inventing these characters. But Ryan Reynolds coming in and being Deadpool, I think a big part of like the irreverent humor is people knowing that you're joking.
Yeah.
And they have to, if people know you're a good dude and don't actually mean this stuff and it is a joke, you can get away with things. People aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, should I don't know. There are people that know this person and understand what they're trying to do. With Ryan Reynolds, he comes in with this like celebrity that we're all going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We know he's a sarcastic dude. We know this is a passion project for him. We know he already was Deadpool and it got fucked up. And this is like something he wanted to do. I'm pretty sure they leaked footage for this, right? From like a green screen thing to get the hype going. Like this was something he was really working on. We were familiar with his sense of humor. And just, I think that kind of changed the whole way we approach this movie, and especially like whatever jokes seemed too much. It's like, it's Ryan Reynolds though. It's Deadpool. It's cool.
Yeah. I'm a Ryan Reynolds apologist still. I
love him.
I love Ryan Reynolds. I mean, The Proposal is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh my God. I love The Proposal. I've seen it too many times.
Oh yeah.
So good.
If I'm like sick, that's a movie that I will turn to
that's
almost
a great
every
sick
time.
movie.
Their chemistry is
Sandy
so
at her
good.
best.
Those
Their
two are so
chemistry
well
is
matched.
so good. It's so good. Yeah. And also another rom-com of his that I was a huge fan of growing up was Definitely Maybe. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yes, it's a classic.
It's a great one.
Yes.
So I like loved Ryan Reynolds as like a rom-com star growing up. That's kind of how I knew him most. And then like he was in Green Lantern and like X-Men Origins. To like that's the other feat of this movie is that it pulled Ryan Reynolds out of the absolute stank that was on him from both X-Men Origins and Green Lantern. Like to do two superhero stinker roles and then to become like one of the more beloved superhero stars. It's a feat. That's a feat that deserves credit.
It's crazy he was allowed to keep trying.
Yeah, exactly. After Green Lantern, it would have been like, no, you're never putting spandex on again, dude.
That's another one where, like, speaking of movies where if you go back and look at the cast now, it'll blow your mind. The snarky friend in Green Lantern, Taika Waititi.
No.
Yeah. Go back, check it out, watch clips.
You're wow.
Like, I promise you will watch a clip of this and you'll be like, what the fuck? It's so cool that he was able to leverage everything and come back to this character and actually do it right. I mean, this is if the MCU hadn't taken off, there's no fucking way anybody would have done that. I feel like he was just riding that wave of people being like, we need to do something to catch up to what Marvel's doing.
Yeah. Also like, granted, I don't know that The Boys could have gotten made without Deadpool, but like if you tried to make Deadpool post The Boys, I feel like they wouldn't have been able to do it the same. I feel like there would have been so many like network expectations put on it, like in like a post The Boys, post Invincible kind of thing, where it would have been like almost like you have to subvert it more, whereas it just subverts it enough. Like truly it follows. The thing I was amazed about on the rewatch is it follows that origin story, like kind of classic superhero structure really well. And that's what makes its making fun of it so good. Whereas like, I feel like in the current appetite for superhero satire, it would be like, you got to do too much and they would like blow their or jump the shark on it is my thought.
Yeah. The emotional beats in this work for me, for sure. I feel very invested in this, and they kind of swing back and forth between comedy and him actually caring.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm fine with it. I think some people, you know, maybe thought it was a little goofy. I think that was like a criticism of it, was like, you know, you can't be this dramatic in a comedy or whatever, but I think it's great. And I also get it. He's like, he's got like two driving forces in his life, you know, really one, the love of his life and getting himself presentable to her, or like getting back to her. And he takes that very seriously, and he doesn't really care about anything else. And I totally get it. I totally get why he's serious in those scenes where it's involving her, and why he's fucking around the rest of the time. It works fine.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of, this was kind of my beef, but now as I've been thinking about it, I like it more, is what do you guys think about him surviving, getting diagnosed with cancer, gaining superpowers, looking ugly, and then being too embarrassed to talk to her and like too ashamed of his looks? It's fascinating, because I was kind of like, oh, this is not enough. You just beat cancer. You were just tortured. You were lit on fire. Like, go get your girl, you know, like this is not enough to stop you. But it is interesting with like Ryan Reynolds being cast, and like one of the sexiest men alive. And it does kind of play into the idea that maybe he's the way he is because he's vain, and he probably gets a lot of pride in the way he presents himself and the way he looks. And even when he's like goofing off before Deadpool, he looks great. Ryan Reynolds is a stud in this movie. His outfits are great. He's got the cool coat and the cool glasses when he's helping out the girls. Like, he looks awesome the whole time. And then to contrast that with Deadpool and the fact that it's like, you know, an A-list celebrity, I think it's growing on me as a thing. But I think, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it enough to stop him from seeing her?
I was with you too. I was in the same boat when I was watching it, where I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. But like, I do think that the way they play their romance is so like hardcore sexual, like physical attraction. Like, that's their whole initial love story is just like them fucking for the first like 20 minutes of the movie, which is funny. But it's also like, then you kind of like, if you really think about it, you're like, oh, like he probably thinks that like that physical attraction is like a huge percentage of their relationship. And it like, the more you think about it, the more I'm like, that's super human, and like how a person might react, you know? It gets a little iffy with the context of like, yeah, you almost died. Then you would probably ignore those things. But like, I do believe it. Yeah. I believe it as a human impulse. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
It's interesting how they both care about each other so much, but they both, like, he gets the diagnosis and they both are taking completely different approaches to it. He's got to run away. She wants to be there and take care of him. And he's ultimately letting her down by doing what he thinks is quote unquote best for her. Like, but this again is like just very human and a very regular relationship, and maybe one of the more complicated superhero relationships we've had, where it's like they don't really know where they stand with each other. It's not, you know, we're used to Spider-Man trying to get the girl, but we're not used to like Deadpool having the girl and just not knowing how to exist with her when they both love each other and they're handling crisis together. I don't know. I think this is like a very compelling relationship, and it's cool. It really works for me.
Yeah, it has to be too, because it's what drives him through the entire movie. So all of the pain that he goes through, all of that maximum effort, all the broken bones and everything that he's doing, it's just so that he can get Francis not to kill him, but so that Francis can make him look normal again, so we can go back to his real life. I mean, it all leans into it, and it leans on us believing that their relationship is as close as it is, which is amazing. They did such a good job to justify that. That way we can get everything else that comes out of it.
Yeah, my backup biggest thief would be, and this is plays right into this, is when she takes his mask off and he has the fucking Hugh Jackman face stapled to his head, is one of the funniest bits in this whole movie. And like, in general, the like meta Wolverine animosity, but that bit in particular, I remember losing my mind the first time I saw it. It was just, it's so funny.
It was rad. I had completely forgotten about that one. Did you guys have any beefs for this one?
I had one. My beef is some of the humor around Negasonic Teenage Warhead really dated this movie. It was the only humor that dated it, and not in like a negative way, but just in a like, oh, that's how we were talking to teenagers in 2016. And I think that's just the nature of like how kids change so quickly and like the perception of them, where I was like, that is such a 2016 teenager, like the way that they're portraying her and the way that like Ryan Reynolds is talking to her. That was the only thing where I was like, that dates this movie. It's like talking about tweeting and like texting and like being kind of like moody in a specific way. That was my only beef, and it's not really a bad one.
I dig it.
I think you're right. That's a great observation. I mean, yeah, I guess now I'm wondering what the modern equivalent of that would be. Like if she's in this movie again.
She'd have dyed hair for sure. If they made it in 2024, she'd have dyed hair. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's great. And I guess she gets a girlfriend in the next one. And I don't know.
That's true.
She's going to be in the third one. I'm really excited to see. I mean, obviously, we're really excited about this Deadpool Wolverine movie because we're doing the whole Summer of X-Men thing to prepare for it. But you know, I'm excited to see how all this stuff ages, because you're right. It is some of it is like a perfect 2016 time capsule. I wonder how that's going to change or evolve, or I don't know. I'd also be down to just watch Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman just like go through the universe, like killing people. Mm-hmm. So I think either way, it's going to be good. Kevin, you got a beef?
My biggest beef was that I don't remember how Deadpool and Colossus actually met. I guess it's not crucially important, but he mentions on the bridge that they've been trying to get him to join the X-Men, and he's had a lot of interactions with them so far. We didn't really see any of that. I don't know if it got cut or what, but I mean, we get the gist. Like, if I was going to cut anything, it would probably be that. Because we talk all the time about how it's like, people get it. Like, we can just cut to the chase with all this stuff. But then, Tim, you completely derailed me and distracted me because you made me think about the fact that in the trailer, we've already seen a little bit of like playing with the fact that both Deadpool and Wolverine have healing factors. I know there's that shot where like Wolverine is laying on top of Deadpool.
Don't tell me about the
Deadpool's
trailer.
Shooting in
I'm not watching it.
You're not a trailer watcher.
No trailers. I'm anti-trailers on the pod. Kevin should know better.
I'm so sorry. But I'm excited to think that we might be able to get some of that same humbling physical comedy with Wolverine that we've gotten
I bet
in this.
with the two of them, there will be some
They've
great
got
physical. I think it'll be wild. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I'm glad that we're getting like a weird excuse to get more of that after the finality of Logan. Yeah. And like, I'm not mad at it. I like thought with Logan, I'd be like, yep, I never have to see him play Wolverine again. But then it's like, well, this is an exception. That's okay.
Yeah. Why not? I got one final question for you guys. I'm really putting you on the spot here. It's the year 2015. Production is greenlit on Deadpool. They're full steam ahead. Ryan Reynolds tragically dies. Who could they possibly put in the role that would land the plane of this movie? Is there anyone?
Nobody.
Okay. I have a thought. I don't love it, but it's the first thought that came to mind, and this is a timed podcast, so I'm going to throw it out there. Yeah. If you give Jake Johnson the Chris Pratt transformation, I think Jake Johnson could maybe pull off the humor. It'd be a different Deadpool, but I think he could maybe do it.
Oh, I think that could be fun. I was thinking the first thing that came to mind for me was Johnny Knoxville.
Whoa.
Oh my
physical comedy,
God, dude.
Yes, which I think you just make it like as much of Jackass as possible. I think in the Venn diagram of sexiest man alive and comedy delivery, he's probably leans a little heavier one way, but
yeah.
I think that could be fun. Like somebody completely irreverent like that with clout.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Those are
What
good
about
ones.
you,
Do you have
Kevin?
someone
You
in
got
mind,
one?
Kevin?
I don't have anyone that I think could actually do it. The only things that I thought of were 3 very different flavors. One that I think wouldn't necessarily be good, but would be interesting as hell was Charlie Day.
Yo, wild.
It'd be weird. And then
It'd
the
be
other
weird.
one where I was like, who would probably get the job, but I don't think would actually be the best for the role is Seth MacFarlane. Just because he was like, that was around the time when he was like hosting SNL and was really trying to step out from behind the Family Guy thing. And I feel like he's the most close. He's like the closest translation of the sense of humor to somebody else that we had. He's got the leading man looks, but his voice coming out of the Deadpool mask would be weird as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got another one. Donald Glover, I think
Oh.
could have maybe pulled it off.
Well, you know, he was working on an
Because
animated
he had
series.
the animated series. That's why. Yeah. Because I remember reading his script that he like put out on Twitter, like the like joke script about it, and it's like, yeah, I think he could find the voice and like find the humor for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd
He
watch the hell
definitely
out of
could.
that.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
great in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh, I still haven't watched that. That's good.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
I
a lot.
loved that movie, so I should watch it.
It's not like the movie at all, but it
No.
is good. They're both great.
Yeah. Oh my
They're
God.
both on the mantle.
Pin 15.
Nice.
Incredible show.
Kevin, I had a random question for you.
Yeah, please.
Is Deadpool a mutant?
In this, they make him a mutant.
Yes. Which is the only reason the X-Men are into him.
In the comics, no, he's not.
He's
a
not in the
mutant.
comics.
Not in the comics.
But
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's his origin in
also-
the comics?
Just an experiment, you know?
Interesting.
But not
Interesting.
technically a mutant. Does not have the X gene. That may have been retconned. I haven't read the Krakoan era, and I think he's generally involved in the Krakoan era. And I mean, they've done so much weird shit in the comic. They retconned it so that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch aren't mutants anymore. Just wild shit going on there. But traditionally, wasn't a mutant. I like him being a mutant more though.
they did also, so then they set up the idea of this a latent mutant gene that could be brought out and really haven't done anything else with it.
Miss
That's
Marvel.
really, they've kind of set that aside.
Miss Marvel, they kind of do that where the end of Miss Marvel, her friend comes up to her and is like, the reason you're able to use the bracers is because you have like a latent mutant, and they play the little X-Men. Yeah.
Dude, I've always thought,
Yes.
I got downvoted to hell last week for posting this on Reddit, but my headcanon for why Miles Morales has electrical powers on top of the spider powers is that he was going to be a mutant anyway, and then just got the spider bite. So like,
Whoa.
because I've always had a hard time when people
And people
have
didn't
powers
like that.
Oh, people despised it, dude. Not fans.
Was somebody like,
was gonna be
actually,
invisible.
this kind of spider generates electricity from its body or something?
Honestly, even more disrespectful. I just got it was like a brand new Reddit account that I opened for the show and just logged back on like 15 minutes later and suddenly had like negative 70 karma. Just destroyed. No responses, just downvoted out of existence.
I want you to get vindicated by like a comic arc in like 10 years. That's what I really want for you. I want
God, I
that to
hope.
get like made canon and you be vindicated.
If we all
We
work
just
together,
need him to.
we can
We
write
just
that.
need him to. We need him to bump into an alternate reality version of himself that's invisible and electric, and it works out completely. The invisible electric guy.
Yeah.
What a compelling combination of superhero traits.
Speaking of compelling combinations, Elliot, do you have anything
Yes.
you'd like to promote?
Yes. Romcom Drama Bomb is my brand new game. It is out as of July 15th. It is a 3-player game of meet cutes and mayhem. You play 2 people who should not fall in love and the evil villain who is determined to make them do so.
God damn it. That sounds fucking fantastic. And that's a perfect
great.
reason. If we ever do the proposal, you got to come back on. Please come
I
back
would
and join
love
us.
to come talk about the proposal.
Thank you so much for being here. Listener, thank you for being here and joining us on the ride of the Summer of X-Men. We will be back here again on Thursday with Deadpool 2. Till then, stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.
Bye. Thanks, Elliot.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.